let's have a conversation about emotional regulation. You've probably heard about emotional regulation if you have been looking for assistance to manage anxiety, overwhelm, stress, or to heal trauma. And your ability to emotionally regulate is really central to determining how you react or respond to things that happen in your environment, things that happen to you and around you. If your emotional regulation is a little wobbly, you might find that you overreact to setbacks, triggers, or stressors. And building that stronger emotional regulation will help you gain sovereignty around your own well-being and your resilience so that you become the master of how you show up and react to people and situations, to the thoughts in your head, rather than allowing your emotions to take over you. Hi, I'm Kim Adams, and I share a blend of psychology and spirituality to help you build radical self-acceptance. I want you to crush those self-limiting beliefs and anxiety so that you can find more calm, confidence, and connection in your life. I really believe we need to take a multi-pronged approach, a top-down approach, which is working with your mind, understanding how you think, why you think the way you do, and starting to look at changing that mindset. I also think we need to take a bottom-up approach, and by that I mean working with your body wisdom, your body's energy to really change and heal. So we can learn more in order to understand about ourselves, but we have to really feel into the body in order to be able to heal and grow. So before we get into more about emotional regulation, remember to hit subscribe and like if you are enjoying this information and want to stay connected to more videos I put up. And there's other ways you can connect with me in the description below. So first, why is emotional regulation important? We operate at our best when we're in a sweet spot of emotions, in a sweet spot of energy fluctuations. We want to be alert and focused and in that positive frame. So we don't want to be understimulated because we won't be motivated and we won't be acting towards our goals. But we also don't want to be either overstimulated in anxiety and energy that is not being controlled and is not helping us. And we don't want to dip into those depths of depression and low mood. So it's almost like that wave of being high and low in our emotions, in our energy, a bit like the beating heart on the monitors of the doctor's screen, is we want that to stay in that nice middle ground where, you know, when things are going well, we can truly feel the happy and joyous emotions and just, you know, be grateful and happy where we are. And sometimes, you know, life happens and life just doesn't go to plan and bad things do happen. And we need to allow ourselves the grace to sometimes sink into those negative emotions because they are valid and real. But what we don't want is those escalations and big drops where we feel out of control of our emotions. Because we tend to think our emotions are sort of happening to us, but really they're created by your subjective experience of a situation. How I react to someone's negative words and criticism in the workplace will be very different to how you react and how you feel that emotionally because of your past learning, because of your personality, because of the habits that you have learnt from watching your family and peers respond as you grow up. So you learn how to react into the world, and that triggers your emotions. And we can't always control our environment. We can't control the bully at work. We can't control the words and behaviours of our family. But what we can gain some measure of control over is how we think about situations and how we then turn that into our emotional perception of the situation. And I mentioned early on about the difference between reaction and response. When we are not in control, or at least we are not aware of what's happening in our thoughts and emotions, we tend to react. That's your reptilian emotional brain that is looking out for you. When there are threats in the environment, you react without triggering that frontal cortex of your brain, which helps you think about, what should I do now? Should I stop and think about this and then make these choices and move towards this solution? When you're in fight or flight, you don't have time for that. So your brain kicks in and you react. Whereas a response is when we do have the time and the ability to think about the situation, to consider alternative solutions and make a decision and a choice. So more often, for most of us in our life, we want to be in that responding mode where we can consider our choices and take actions that are in our best interests and keep us within that nice sweet spot of emotions. If you don't have good emotional regulation, you might find that you react inappropriately or unhelpfully to situations. So the colleague at work, for example, who is maybe passive aggressive or even directly aggressive in their bullying behavior will trigger that fight, flight, or freeze mode. The family member who is constantly undermining you will put you into that immediate fight, flight, or freeze mode. And that can often show up in terms of the fight side of things in slamming doors, yelling, quickly sending off that email in response or that text. So that really immediate reaction, which doesn't always get you the outcome that you want and can actually exacerbate problems. Alternatively, you might go into a freeze mode where you emotionally shut down, where in meetings, for example, you feel under threat because someone has simply said something that disagrees with you that you perceive to be a threat against yourself or against your competency. So you shut down, you withdraw, you avoid. And sometimes we can do a really good job of convincing ourselves that it doesn't matter, that it didn't hurt, that the emotions aren't there. But they don't just go away, we push them down. So you can see if you're reacting to situations, you can sometimes not get the outcomes you want. You don't get that sense of being in control of a situation. And often those reactions to situations just end up making things worse. So how can you create better emotional regulation? The first thing is self-awareness, becoming aware of the fact that you are reacting, becoming aware of what is making you react that way, starting to see if there are patterns in behavior into your emotional reactions. What seems to flip that switch and make you become really defensive and aggressive? Start to become aware, because if we are not aware of what we're doing, we cannot change what we're doing. And when we find ourselves in that moment, can you pause and feel into where that stress, that resistance, that energy is in your body? Don't immediately push it away. So for me, if I'm in a situation where I feel I have been judged or criticized, because that tends to be a trigger for me to react, is I feel it in my jaw, in my mouth. I get very tense and tight. I feel it in my heart. I'll get palpitations that start to rise. So those are signs to me that, whoa, wait a minute, I'm starting to go into my fight or flight or freeze response. What's going on here? What am I feeling? Where am I feeling it? And don't push it away immediately. Pause for a moment and feel into that, because your body has messages for you if you listen. So I want to ask you, can you sit with the physical discomfort of your emotional experience? Because if you can learn that, that is one of the biggest steps that will start to shift how you react. The third thing is then start to notice and manage the impulses you might have to avoid that physical and emotional bad feeling. A very typical one for many of us is that we rush to the snack drawer I know for me, that's my go-to. If I'm feeling uncertain, I'm feeling like I'm in a position where I don't know what I'm going to do, I'm going to fail, I feel flustered, I feel overwhelmed, my immediate thing is I get up and I go to the snack drawer and I'm into the chocolate or into the corn chips to soothe the soul, to soothe my energy, to make those bad feelings go away just for a moment. So that emotional eating, you might turn to scrolling, what's the word? Without thought, scrolling mindlessly, that's the word, scrolling mindlessly on social media. You can't deal with the conflict in the family, so you just want to block it out. The impulse is to block it out, to avoid. So you start scrolling aimlessly on stuff that has no meaning, but it takes you out of the pain of that moment. It could be having a cigarette. It could be firing off that email so that you feel like, yes, I've taken control of this situation. I've put them in their place. It gives that moment of not feeling the bad feeling and a fake sense of feeling in control. So then the next thing you want to do, number 4 then, is to release that energy and find a way to soothe those feelings that isn't as toxic as emotional eating, sending off angry emails inappropriately, scrolling needlessly on social media. What can you do to soothe yourself? And the best one here is movement. Any sort of body movement, because as I said, the energy is in your body. The energy of that emotion is in your body. So we want to release it. So move. Can you get up and go for a walk? Walking outside in particular is really helpful, but any sort of walking. Can you do some stretches? If you're at home, can you put on your music and even try and do a bit of a dance and just move that energy through your system and release it in a healthy way? And then finally, now that we've released that unwanted reactive energy, we can step now into the ability to make a choice. So now we can choose the response. Maybe now that you've had time to cool down, you realize that the best response is no response at all. It is really not worth it. It really wasn't that big a deal. And because you've been becoming more self-aware, you've noticed there's a pattern that whenever someone at work, for example, criticizes you or makes you feel small, this is what you do. And it's like, here I go again. Okay, so I don't need to do anything. I need to just work on why I'm feeling like that. And sometimes you can do that on your own, and sometimes you might need a coach or a therapist or a guide to help you with that. Or you might now be able to choose a very measured email, text conversation with the person that has triggered this reaction, something that will actually get you to an outcome that is better than where you are now. And most of all, accepting that you are learning. It has probably taken your whole life to learn the patterns of emotional dysregulation that you have. So it's not going to change overnight. So be gentle with yourself, be kind to yourself. Notice when you are doing a bit better, even if it's only a little bit better. Have self-compassion. So finally, just want to remind you that emotional regulation is not about staying positive. That really is unhealthy positivity. Sometimes it is very appropriate and very necessary to respond with anger or be furious about a situation. An angry response is different to an angry reaction and is more likely to have better outcomes. So this isn't a message for you to, damn it, I am going to stay positive even when bad stuff happens. No, it's about learning to respond when bad stuff happens rather than let those emotions take control of you and the situation. So it's not about avoiding negative feelings, snapping out of it. It's about learning to feel so that you can heal those patterns that are holding you back and get better outcomes. So remember, patterns of behavior and thinking have been built over a long time. It will take a while for you to change them. So let me know the ways that you release that energy when you feel it building. Do you go for a walk? Do you dance? What do you do to help you release those reactive emotions so you can make better choices? So remember to hit the subscribe button below and connect with me on Instagram or Facebook to learn more about how you can discover radical self-acceptance and find more calm and confidence in your life.